please, to the floor so they can answer the questions. It's nice to meet each other in these meetings.
Dr. Fuad.
Dr. Fuad.
Could you please join speakers?
Now we'll open the floor for discussion. Yeah, you can start. Please introduce yourself and then address the question, and be very short in the question, please. Can I have the mic, please? Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. My question to Dr. Hamid Bakir about the limits of standards in WHO guideline. It is noticed that there are some differences between the WHO guideline and some countries' standards, especially in trace elements, not only in this general chemistry like TDS and this. Do you have a criteria that you make sure that this limits on those countries is not harmful, especially those limits actually it is noticed upper more than the WHO permissibles? This is the first question. The other, I have comment only for the Dr. Ode that he restabilized in ourselves the right concepts of what that originate from our culture. And my opinion is to include this as a main recommendation in the recommendation list which might issue today. He might has a comment on that, and thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Just to make sure I understand the question correctly, there are differences between countries' standards and WHO standards, and the question is there any evidence of any harm? Right. Okay. Well, WHO standards are developed by the WHO Standards Committee, which is a group of over 50 people from all over the world. It's a group of is a scientific group that reviews the guidelines constantly. Every almost year we have a meeting of the group to review the latest evidence, scientific evidence on the water quality now, and come to conclusions on what is the most sort of evidence-based recommendation that we can make to the countries. Our interest is to make evidence-based recommendations to the countries. Now, the guidelines are recommendations and they are not standards. So, but the guidelines say also that countries can adopt the guidelines, adapt them and adopt them in view of the local conditions. In many situations, it is easy to achieve the guidelines and accept them the way they are. In many other situations, it is harder because, say, if nitrate is so high, is higher than the limit, if the limit is 50 and nitrate concentration across big part of the country is 55, say, are you going to shut down all those water sources or say, well, 55 is not harmful, right? It's tolerable. But if we stop all these water sources, the actual damage caused to public health is larger than the extra 5 micrograms of nitrate in a liter of water. So part of what the guidelines recommend to countries is to do internal risk assessment and decide on what's suitable for them. There are some materials that are not tolerable, and where they are not tolerable, the guidelines establish very strict criteria on those. and recommend that strict criteria to countries. So there is no, in conclusion, it is okay to have differences between WHO guidelines and what countries adopt, as long as the countries do informed decisions based on risk assessment.
Any other questions?
Maybe, thank you for your comment regarding the concept of Arab culture. I believe that this idea of having our pride and trust and confidence in our ability to contribute to the global discourse is key. And sometimes we lost our ability to contribute to the global discourse because of lack of many reasons. And having the pride of our identity, and this will contribute to our destiny. The idea of identity and destiny, الهوية والمصير, is key. Sometimes we lose our responsibility, social responsibility, to the global community. The notion of Rahma lil-Alamin, that this part of the world, the emergence, the birth of spirituality and contribution to humanity came from this part of the world. And we lose that, and we try to borrow horizontal transfer of values, cultures from different parts of the world, whether from China, North, West, or South, or the US. Having the pride and confidence in our ability is key. That's why the idea of Hima or Waqf, the first idea of endowment fund, came from this part of the world, for water, Waqf for water. The idea of Hima, social responsibility, المسؤولية المجتمعية مش الاجتماعية. Every individual, it's not about private, corporate responsibility, it's about individual responsibility. So even it's more broader. So losing our social compass, فقدان البوصلة الاجتماعية، عدم ثقتنا بما لدينا، لم يعد يسمعنا الغرب. وبالتالي كل ما كان في اعتزاز بالهوية واعتزاز بما نملك يستطيع أن نسمع للغرب. يعني الآن عم بيتكلموا عن اليينغ واليانغ، بنستعمل العمارة اليابانية والثقافة الصينية واليوغا whatever، لكن لم نستطع لأسباب مختلفة أن نقدم للغرب إسهاماتنا والمعرفية وثرائنا المعرفي لإشكالاتنا بالهوية. فكل ما كان لدينا ثقة بهويتنا ممكن أن نؤثر في الخطاب الدولي. عندما نتكلم عن رويو بلس 20 لا يوجد قصة لنا تحكي للعالم كيف معنات الاستدامة أو الحياة الطيبة. أنا بسميها مش sustainable development، طيبة development. وحتى ممكن أن نقحم أو ندخل المصطلحات العربية في الخطاب الدولي، زي فكرة الكلام الكثير اللي صار إدخال المصطلحات العربية. ما لم نمتلك الثقة على غرس المصطلحات العربية في الخطاب العالمي لن يسمع لنا العالم. ويبدو لي هذا لدينا مسؤولية أخلاقية، مسؤولية فكرية أن نسهم في هذا الخطاب الدولي.
Thank you. Any other questions, please? Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Sami Moghrabi from Itako. This is a question for Dr. Ode. Thank you for your presentation. I'm over here. Thank you. My question is, if we are looking at an individual trying to maximize their utility from an economics perspective, they're going to incur externalities, as you had mentioned in your presentation. How can a government institutionalize the system and process where they can hold individuals accountable for that type of behavior, for externalities? And do you see, we see that in Northern Europe and America, but do you see something like that being institutionalized in the Middle East in the near future? I mean, I know we see, Qatar Foundation, Masdar, they have new research and development and new ideas, etc. But do you see that a more top-down approach from an accountability issue for individuals in that sense in the near future in the Middle East? Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is a pretty challenging question. And at the end of the day, I think you can talk about at policy level. Dr. Bakir has talked about the regulation at high level. But at the end of the day, I mean, people talk about the three components of knowledge, attitude, and practice. In order to influence the mindset of people, you need to address three domains: the CAP, the knowledge, the attitude, and the practice. Sometimes people have knowledge, but this knowledge is not transferred into practice, or there's no change in attitude. So what's key is how we can enable people to embody this knowledge. تجسيد المعرفة. How people will embody knowledge. And it takes a lot of heightened consciousness. وعي جديد. People will feel the idea of environmental stewardship, human stewardship, guardianship. The idea, what we call in Arabic, إنه الإنسان مستخلف. So we are not only a consumer in a global economy, we have a responsibility, an ethical one, a moral, a spiritual one, and an intellectual one. Losing sight of responsibility is a key. So we need to instill the local values of our role of using resources with responsibility, what we call zuhd, living lightly on earth, or enoughness. The other point in terms of R&D, STI, science, technology, and innovation, I mean, in terms of knowledge creation, it's not an option for this part of the world, for the Arab region, for GCC countries, that we cannot accept to be just consumers of knowledge, consumers of R&D. And it's mandatory, it's imperative that this part of the world is to be able to produce science, technology, and innovation in order to contribute to the global discourse of this is part of trusteeship, this is part of stewardship. So it's not an option for us. And what's key is to establish what we call collaborative virtual learning societies, learning space, a knowledge-creating society that is able to contribute to new knowledge in renewable energy, in desalination, in biosaline, all sorts of empowering society to be part of the green economy. So it's not an option, it's imperative. And I think we have the infrastructure in terms of Kisr, KAUST, KAXT, Masdar, whatever you have in the Royal Scientific Society in Jordan. If we are able to build, and in Egypt, there's a lot of interesting institutions in the National Water Center and others. But if we are able to establish what we call regional hubs, virtual learning societies, virtual learning collaborative research units, think tanks, we'll be able to do that. The paradox is that we have more collaboration with West countries, with Western countries in the US and Europe, more than we have collaboration in the region. And it's a paradox. That's why we need to have more focused, more deliberate collaboration in science and technology and focus on the local needs. We cannot compete with MIT and Harvard on nanotechnology, perhaps. But if we focus on our local needs, on what we really need, and have priorities, I think we can make a difference. And the future is bright.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
As we know that the
Can you introduce yourself first, please?
Abdullah Ali, a chief of water conservation, Kingdom of Bahrain. As we know that the desalination plants has a bad impact on the environment. Most of the research, they look the effect of the plant after the plant, I mean the discharge point. But there is no studies regarding before the plant, because all the studies, they take in account the creatures living behind after the plant. But what is before the plant, there is nothing, there is no research. Actually, there are two living bodies, one before the plant and one after the plant. What we do in desalination or in generating power, we have to disinfect all the water before it goes inside the plant. I mean, we have to kill all tiny creatures, all tiny creatures before it goes to the plant. And this is the tiny creatures, the beginning of this food cycle. If we assume that we are not, increasing the temperature we are not increasing the salinity, we are not increasing the chemicals, but we are dumping a live body. We took a live body full of life, and we dump it after the plant, dead body. I will assume that there is no increase in salinity, temperature, and chemical. This has nobody was, I don't see, I don't see anybody is, is studying this effect of, maybe I am not clear in my, the studies, all the studies are looking for the creatures after the plant. But whatever is killed, already killed, and dumped a dead body on the other side, there is no, there is no studies. So I think, this should be in the modeling, what Mr.
Lavan, yeah.
Lavan?
Lavan.
Yes, so you can, you do this study, because actually in the Gulf, every day we treat more than 120 million tons of water. I mean, we are killing the tiny creatures of 120 million. And Iraq and Iran also, they will come, they will also be, the next, producer of desalination. So I think it's very important to look in this problem.
This should be covered in the environmental impact assessments of the projects, I guess. But Lavan, if you want to...
Termed as dead bodies are discharged as organic matter, and this organic matter is consumed and has an oxygen demand. So this is sometimes modeled as biochemical oxygen demand, for instance, and can lead to anoxia, amongst others, at the discharge point. And we are ready to simulate that with our models, especially the introduced reactive transport model, 3D Smart. We included the terms reactive transport to underline that we are capable to model complicated conversion reactions and also growth terms and consumption terms. So we can simulate this oxygen consumption, this local anoxia, and can carry out an environmental impact assessment either locally, just for one plant, or on a more macroscopical scale for the entire Arabian Gulf, though it would in the later case be a more substantial effort.
Okay, any more questions?
Excuse me?
You have one more question?
Yes, just...
or your comment on this?
Yeah, comment,
okay.
Elaborate. You are still, thinking about the creatures after the plant.
Yeah.
We are, I'm saying that we have to this is, what we are killing before the plant. This is what I'm, how to reduce the killing, how to, to think, one of the ideas that, I don't know, maybe I'm not an environmental, but these desalination plants or power plants, they have to generate whatever has been killed before. I mean, like, fish farms, they are, producing foods. So you have to produce food and dump it again after, with the discharge water. This is maybe one of the solutions. And also, why we have to inform the public why our consumption per capita is up to 400, 600. It means that in another way, your requirement is one chicken to fulfill your family, and you are killing 20 chickens. You got my point? You are treating a mass quantity because the people, they don't understand what's, because we are giving them a guarantee that our plants are safe and we are, according to the standards, we are dumping a low temperature, a low salinity. We are not telling the people that already we have killed. This is a very, very important thing. Then you want the people to cooperate with you, to participate with you, to save the environment. You are not telling the people that you already killed. You are not, you are not looking for the creatures after, but you already killed. So I think this is a very important point of awareness that whatever we are doing, okay, according to the standards, we still, because you cannot drive your car without polluting the environment. So you have to reduce using you have to reduce consuming the water.
All these issues have to be addressed in the environmental impact assessment through the mitigation measures, through the public participation. Thank you very much for coming. Any other questions, please? Yeah, go ahead. Please introduce yourself.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My question is
your name, please, and your name.
My name is Fatma Al-Awadi. I'm from Kuwait. And my question also on the desalination, where the desalination countries start this process. My question, we have a problem in Kuwait with the bromate and borate. People in Kuwait, because of the standard of the guideline, the WHO guideline, reduce the level of blending of the process in Kuwait is to produce distilled water and add to it 10% in the past, 10% groundwater to make it palatable and suitable for drinking. The bromate is very high. I think the level was a little higher than the standard. They make a fuss out of it, and people were chaos. They don't know what to do. In this case, they decided to reduce the blending ratio to 2% instead of 10%. In my opinion, we lost the salts, the natural salts that comes from the sea. And the corrosion rate, of course, definitely will increase, which makes us making or producing CO2 or taking the CO2 from the sea, add it to the distilled water, and then pass it through calcium carbonate bed to increase the carbonate. All this process is because of the bromate. Or is there any study that, I'm not against it, but I think the people lost a lot of salts that was added to the distilled water by adding the natural brackish water. Is there any latest level that WHO set for those, the bromate and boron, that I will consider? Because next week we will have a meeting on this issue. So I want to hear it from you, from the source, rather than from anybody else. And thank you very much. And before I end, please, I thank Dr. Ouda for his presentation and his link between our deen and religious to technology. And I wish we use this all the time, because we don't want to lose it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fatima. You remember, I think you were involved in the development of WHO guidance document on desalination for safe water supply. You were deeply involved in that discussion, and so you are aware of the background to all of this. The question of, the nutritious value of water. There was a consultative group that had several meetings to elaborate this issue, and I think the question was raised mainly by the Gulf states. What is the nutrition? What do we lose nutrition-wise if we rely on desalination? And as we know, we have to correct the desalinated water so that it's actually drinkable and usable. The document is available on WHO. I can provide you with the link to it. There is If I remember correctly, and I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, and I don't want to make a reference statement. There are some concerns when it comes to drinking, unbalanced desalinated water. But I think the industry is compensating for that by remineralizing the water. One of the ways to remineralize is to mix, blend, and one other way is to add, CO2, etc., etc. So I can provide you with a document. I can send you an email with a document for strong reference, the nutritious value of water, and it sheds light on what are the most important nutrition-wise elements that we have to look after when we do the desalination. I can give you that reference after. Yeah.
We have room for maybe one more question, if anybody's interested.
No question. Since there are no questions, I think we come to the end of this session. And we would like to thank our distinguished keynote speaker and our speaker for their contribution to the Gulf Water Conference. And the Gulf Water Conference Organizing Committee would like to invite you to accept an acknowledgement certificate for your contribution to this conference. Thank you very much. And we'd like also to thank the attendees, the participants, for their attendance, and thank you very much.
Could you please come? Yeah, Dr.
Maybe on behalf of Mr. Abdullah Al-Ma'touf. Okay. And Mr. Johan Lawen.
Certificate is about appreciation to the co-chairing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Dr. Abdul Mu'ti.